this probably was the most. This is the most highly anticipated game of opening night. In some ways, it lived up to expectations, and in other ways, it did not. Of course, the most dire circumstance involving this game between the Cleveland Cavaliers and Boston Celtics, of course, the devastating injury that occurred with approximately 6 minutes and 50 seconds into the first quarter, when Boston Celtics small forward Gordon Hayward was going up for a lob pass thrown from Kyrie Irving, and he got bumped in the air, and he landed awkwardly on his leg and bent his ankle, fracturing it in a rather gruesome manner. I've always seen players. That's why I often hate seeing players in the air like that. When there's some contact, I always have a fear of them landing kind of awkwardly on their leg. I've seen it before with players landing on their leg in a bent manner, but oftentimes, fortunately, their foot never get like bent under them in an awkward or unnatural manner. But in that circumstance, that happened to Gordon Hayward. And I think, I'm not a doctor, but we've all seen these types of injuries before. And with basketball, I would assume this probably is a season-ending injury. I mean, you have to think about, what happened to Paul George a couple of years ago. We had various other players have had terrible injuries like that. You have to think that, his season might be done. But the game in itself, I guess many people would have speculated after that it'll be a blowout win for the Cavaliers. But oftentimes what happens when you have an injury like that, the first thing that comes to mind historically would be when Willis Reed got injured in that 1970 NBA Finals series between I think it was Game 5 when Willis Reed went down with that leg injury, and against the Lakers, and the Knicks actually won that game because a lot of times what happens when you have an injury like that, it kind of can inspire your teammates to play harder. They know what the stakes are. They know they can kind of feed off of that. I don't want to say injury because that's like a wrong phrasing for such a negative and horrible event as an injury in sports, but it sort of motivates them to play harder. But a lot of times it's temporary. And Game 6, I remember Chamberlain scored like 45 points and won that game. So it's like I said, it's temporary. But that's what happened tonight. Boston was able to get back into this thing. And one of the things I'm seeing with Cleveland, even though on paper they look great, you see all the players they have, former MVP Derrick Rose, former All-Star, former superstar, really, Dwayne Wade Flash, future Hall of Famer. Of course, LeBron, you have Kevin Love, perennial All-Star. They're still going to have Isaiah Thomas coming into the fold, the NBA's most improved player, I think, from last year, averaging 29 points a game with the Celtics. You see all this, but one thing that I'm concerned about with Cleveland, and you saw it tonight, is their defense. Now, Jay Crowder is supposed to help with that, but they're still a team, in my opinion, that is a little bit old. And you can see that a little bit with the transitional defense tonight. There were a lot of buckets that Boston got in the fast break and open court. And that's going to hurt them with some of these younger teams, I think, on some nights. Cleveland. Maybe it's an aberration. Cleveland still has to work things out. You know, you got a lot of new faces on this team. You know, these guys got to get used to playing one another. So I don't want to take too much into one game, but they almost lost this game tonight. I'm on Cleveland. If it weren't for the will of LeBron James, they would have probably in that key bucket by Kevin Love, that key 3-pointer near the end of the ball game. But they almost lost this game. But let's see some of the numbers here for Boston. Al Horford, who I think is one of the most overpaid so-called All-Stars, 9 points, or former All-Star, 9 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Jason Tatum had a big game tonight, 14 points and 10 rebounds. Of course, Gordon Hayward only played 5 minutes, so there's no point of saying his numbers, you know what I mean? Kyrie Irving had a very good night, 22 points to go along with 10 assists. Kyrie Irving almost hit what would have been a game-time 3-pointer as seconds remained as the shot clock expired. But like his 3 was just a little bit short. Had he got a better look at the basket, I think that shot might have went in. And Jaylen Brown had 25 points, 6 rebounds. Actually took more shots from the Celtics than anybody else. Shot 11-23 from the floor. Kevin Love had 15 points, 11 rebounds. Hit 1 3-pointer. Of course, that crucial 3-pointer that went in toward the end of the game. Jay Crowder had 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. Jalen Rose, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Showed some of the old quickness and explosiveness a little bit tonight. He looked pretty good. I got to give him that, but I have to wonder what the hell that is that he's wearing on his head tonight. You know what I mean? Teach his own. You know, but I thought the Dougie Doug look went out in the 90s. You know what I mean? Anybody who's my age remember who Dougie Doug was. Dwayne Wade struggled tonight, and many people feel like that this is a team that he might struggle with as far as the way that their offense is set up. But he was 3 for 10 tonight, 8 points. And, of course, LeBron James was magnificent. 29 points, 16 rebounds, 9 assists, 12 of 19 from the floor. Everybody struggled from 3-point range on both sides with the exception of Kyrie Irving tonight. But LeBron James kind of had to take over offensively for the Cavaliers, especially going into the fourth quarter because they just couldn't get anything done. Excuse me. But Boston played really. They played very well tonight. You know, you got to tip your hat off to them. They played very well tonight, and that's pretty much it. That's all I got to say. You know, Cleveland has to work on some stuff. I think in some instances, playing Kevin Love at the 5 can be a detriment. He's not a great defensive player. He's a matchup nightmare, but he's not a great defensive player. So he could give up a lot more points than a normal center would in those circumstances. So that's it. That's all I gotta say, man. Tell me what you guys think. You know, there is one more thing I want to say. You have to wonder if Kyrie Irving, he'll never admit it, of course, but you have to wonder if he might be regretting making that trade request. Charles Barkley said this in the halftime show. Cleveland is now pretty much, without Gordon Hayward, they're pretty much a regular team now. Okay? And we all remember how individually good Kyrie Irving was with the Cleveland Cavaliers. But he never showed to me the first 3 years before LeBron came back to Cleveland. He never showed to me that he made his teammates better. Okay? Now, as horrible as this sounds, okay, and I do not want Gordon Hayward in any way. I didn't want him to get injured. But with the situation unfolding the way it is now, Kyrie Irving is the unquestioned leader of this team now. He's the best player. Now he has to show, now that the burden is totally on him, that he can make his teammates better. Now, I'm not going to say that this team is going to be as good as they can be with Gordon Hayward. No, I'm not saying that. They're not going to be the second best team or the third best team in the Eastern Conference now. But can Kyrie Irving now show that he can indeed make players around him better, as a LeBron James did, as a Michael Jordan did, as a Magic and Larry Bird most certainly did, as even a Bill Russell could? You know what I mean? Can you make players around you better? And that's the challenge for Kyrie Irving now, as he, in a sense, goes solo in leadership with the Celtics this year.